Hello everyone, Indra here. In this video, I'll team up with another Photoshop artist and we'll try to create something epic. Welcome to the very first episode of Art Jam. In this episode, I jammed with Marina from Mari's Visuals. She is a really talented Photoshop artist, and if you haven't seen her profile yet, please feel free to search her up on Instagram with Mari's Visuals. She has got some amazing compositions that's bound to brighten up your day. All her creations and color choice are really unique and they have a certain feel-good factor to it. So don't forget to show some love to the artist. And if you're feeling lazy, I've put a link for you in the description section which you can click and you can simply land on her profile. So coming back to our composition, we thought about creating a warrior with a beast in some snowy landscape. So we started with this base plate. Marina did a pretty great job finding the character model, and this is by the way from ArtStation. I'll put a link below so that you can go and check out the original artist for this character model. I know what you are thinking right now. Hey, this looks just like Eivor from Assassin's Creed Valhalla with a big fat snake sword. Yes, that is what it is. I give you full marks for that. Well, jokes apart and coming back to our composition. We created this snowy terrain, but then we felt something is not right and we agreed upon that maybe the warrior is not that heavily clothed for this snowy environment. So we thought about changing the landscape a bit and create something different. If you are curious to see what we do at the end, please feel free to stick around. So let's start jamming. On our base plate, we started with changing the sky and took a pretty dramatic cloudy sky with some nice pink and blue and all shades of color, which we destroyed completely by adding a neutral gradient map. But don't worry, it will look pretty good at the end, I think. Then we took some really cool looking mountains. We thought these interesting shapes will add some interesting stuff in our composition, so duplicated them multiple times and spending some time with the layer masking, we ended up with creating our handmade interestingly shaped mountains. Then we thought about making some variation in our landscape by making the warrior and the wolf stand on a cliff at the edge. That might give some edge to our composition, hopefully. So we took this image and we removed the person standing in the center with content over fill and again duplicated this cliff rock multiple times and blended on the layer mask here and there to get the shape of the cliff that we are looking for. At the same time, we are using a smoke brush to reveal some parts of that cliff image to create that misty environment. Now the basic choice of the images are pretty crucial here. All the images that we used have that misty feel to it so that it becomes easier for us to work and get that feel in our composition that we are looking for. Now here the position of the rocks were not perfectly aligned with the feet, so we again duplicated the cliff and took a slice of it, and with that we masked out that imperfection. Placing some more rocks here and there by duplicating the same image of the cliff. Then we're off to create that distant pine forest. We again chose a nice pine forest cover with fog and mist, and we duplicated it a couple of times and painted on the layer mask to show the specific areas which suited best for our composition. Then the dark pine trees in the background were not going that much with the overall composition. So what we did was, like a cheap hack, we took another snow-covered pine forest and placed those trees precisely on top of those dark trees, trying to give an impression that our pine forest is snow-covered. That's pretty cool, huh? What do you think? Plus we also didn't want it to deviate from our initial thought of placing this warrior in some snow-covered mountains. Then we quickly repositioned the eagle and the crows, made them a bit smaller to have an appearance that they're at a distance. Next, it's the interesting part, the color grading. We already had some nice adjustment layers that we already did on our base plate. So it had some nice blue cast with some moody tones. So we thought about adding more color lookup table adjustment layers. So 2 more adjustment layers with fall colors and a red, blue, yellow did the trick. We masked out the areas of the warmer tones on the top right corner, trying to give an impression that the sunlight is coming from that region, and we kept the blue shades for the bottom left and the surrounding areas. Here we're trying to add some fog in the distance to create that separation between the mountains and also play with that atmospheric depth. Then we quickly created some layers on top of the crows and painted with some solid color just to give that feel that the crows are at a distance, and this would hopefully create that atmospheric depth in between the viewer and the crows. Then we darkened the distant mountain a bit, and we did the same treatment with the eagle. We created a layer and painted with some nice warm colors just to break it up a bit and blend with the sky properly. Next, it's time to work on the warrior. We reduced the vibrance a bit because he was a bit oversaturated, and we created an exposure layer and painted on an inverted layer mask to create his basic shadow on the ground. Then it's time to do the fun part, and that is the highlights. This time I chose a hue saturation layer, checked the colorize checkbox, took a color in the shade of yellow, cranked up the saturation and the lightness, and painted on an inverted layer mask with a soft round brush to mark those highlight regions. I duplicated the same layer to create that fine rim light. Then again I duplicated the layer and created an ambient glow. Next, it's time to do the shadows. It's pretty simple, you know it if you're watching all of my videos. We simply created an exposure adjustment layer, clipped it to the warrior layer, and on the inverted layer mask we painted with white to create some shadows and add some drama to our character. We again duplicated the exposure layer to create some stark shadows. Next, we used the same kind of exposure layer, clipped it to the wolf layer, and we painted on the inverted layer mask with white to create the shadow on the wolf. This side will be pretty dark because it's on the opposite side of the light. And for the highlights, we took a blank layer with blending mode of screen and we painted with the warm color of the sky because the fur here will have some translucent properties because lights will pass through the gaps in the fur and it will just create that fluffy nature. So hopefully we think we did it correctly. You be the judge. You tell in the comments if this is good, you like it or whatever. Next, it's time to work on the shadows for the wolf that will be falling on the ground. It's again pretty simple, created an exposure layer, changed the sliders to some dark values, and on the inverted layer mask we painted with white to create the shadows. Next, it's the epic part, and that is to make this sword glow. We went with a nice purple color. We created a solid color fill with the shade of dark purple, changed the blending mode to linear dodge, clipped it to the warrior layer, and on the inverted layer mask we carefully painted the region where we wanted the glow to happen. With that done, we quickly created a hue saturation layer with checking the colorize checkbox and taking the shade in some hue of purple, cranked up the saturation and the lightness and painted on the layer mask to get that hazed effect. Now on a blank layer, we took a smoke brush and with some purple color, we created that purple smoke. And we again created another solid color layer in the shade of purple, changed the blending mode to linear dodge. On the inverted layer mask, we carefully painted with white on the areas where the highlights should fall on the warrior because of the mystical glowing purple sword. Now if you want to see how I create highlights in my artworks, I have a dedicated video to it. I say it in almost all of my videos now. You can find the link in the description sections. With that done, we added some nice vignette on the bottom left corner because we're having that drama that the shadows are on the bottom left part and the lights will be from the top right part, and we are having that diagonal separation of light and shadow following the same line with the sword and the axe. Next, it's time to add some snow because we thought about creating a snowy landscape, right? So we added some snowy particles, changed the blending mode to screen, duplicated it a couple of times and played with the layer masks until it looked good to us. Then we spent some more time off screen to shuffle the images here and there a bit, and then took a final snapshot of everything and went into camera raw filter to add some pop. And here goes the final result. So what do you think about our art jam? Don't forget to let us know in the comments section below. I think we blended our styles pretty good over here. I would have never went for this kind of color scheme if I was not collaborating with Marina. She often uses this kind of color gradations and it was really fun to create this composition. So I hope you like this video. If so, please don't forget to subscribe my channel. That will greatly motivate to create more stuff like this and also art jam with other amazing Photoshop artists for you to enjoy. Well then, I'll see you in my next video and till then enjoy creating.